To Forge and Freedom into the Fire, the podcast where men sharpen themselves and build brotherhood. I'm Zach Monroe, your host, and every week we dig into real stories, gritty adventures, and the mindset it takes to live free and lead strong. Pull up a chair by the fire and let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Forge and Freedom into the Fire podcast. I'm your host, Zach Monroe, and I'm joined again today with Adam for another episode. This is episode 5. We are here to talk about being outside and using adventure as therapy and talking about burnout and being able to manage an uncontrollable schedule sometimes. And so, actually, today was a perfect example of that. It's Friday afternoon. It was a little chilly this morning, but Adam and I had an opportunity to get together before the podcast. And we went for a 3-mile walk on the John Story Trail and just had some really good discussions about some of these topics today, too. We also got into some heavy conversation about health, right? And kind of that natural or holistic, being of sound body and mind and how that can help heal your body sometimes, too. But for me personally, I've found that, being outside, just being grounded and being getting the fresh air has been really beneficial. So, I think some of the idea that we're going to talk about in this episode is, something that men need to talk about more, talk about times when maybe we have struggled and, didn't feel that we could talk about it, how we deal with pressure. I think that's a big conversation. And, talking about why men are maybe afraid to admit that they're tired or burnout or, are dealing with a lot of responsibilities. So, let's just kind of get in some conversation here. Also, thanks for joining me today again. This is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Excited. Let's rock and roll.
Did you enjoy the walk this morning?
Loved it. And yeah, being outside, being in nature is really marvelous. And to enjoy it with a friend, perfect way to start a morning.
Yeah, definitely therapeutic. I like something that you said this morning. You're like, we're not always going to be able to do these cold plunges. We'll do them as long as we can up until, you got to break through 6 inches of ice and I'm going to get an auger out to do a cold plunge. But something that you had mentioned that you like to do, I thought that was kind of neat, is to just throw the boots on, put some shorts on, put a T-shirt on, and just go sit outside in the middle of winter sometimes to get that body to adjust, right? And even though it was 40 degrees this morning, like you said it too, like why do we have hoodies on? We should just be slowly adjusting and acclimating our bodies to the cold weather as it comes on, instead of just waiting until mid-January and then trying to just dive right into it.
Yeah, it's one of those homeopathic therapies, free therapy, getting sun and acclimated to the cold. That really kind of turns on some responses that helps you with stress and anxiety and the pressure of a busy work life or just a busy life in general. It's one of those free therapies. Get out there, get in the sun. I like to start early so that it's not such a shock. I think we kind of talked like you kind of wait until winter's here to get out in the cold, then you're going to be cold. You start now as the fall creeps in and gets colder and colder. You slowly get acclimated and you'll be more comfortable as the winter approaches and once winter's here. And it's one of those ways to kind of force you into some breath work, and I guess it's one of those other therapies that can help you with a busy work life and stress, anxiety, and stuff like that.
It could go a long way for people who recreate outdoors in the winter too, right? So whether you like to hunt or ice fish or ski or snowboard or even if you go out to shovel your driveway, especially living up here in the Northeast and exactly where we live around the border of Canada, although it hasn't been as cold these last few years, it still gets pretty cold. And so I guess doing these types of things and slowly acclimating your body helps when it comes to participating in those activities, right? And could prevent, hypothermia, right? If you're a hunter, you get lost out in the woods, but your body's now acclimated. Where if you just try to dive into it in the middle of November and you're in the woods and it's, 10 degrees, it's going to be tough. I mean, you got to have all your equipment and be responsible and prepared regardless. But I think doing this is super important.
Certainly, you're avoiding that shock, and especially if you're going out hunting or into the woods. If you potentially get lost or something doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out, if you're not acclimated to the cold and you're out, you're instantly just cold. You're putting yourself in a situation that is not ideal. Certainly with hunting and fishing, like, if it's another way too, like, that's the easy way to get sick. You can prevent yourself from getting sick from exposing yourself to the elements as they progressively change, so it's not so sudden, and your body's going to respond. It's going to prepare for that. So you're also avoiding colds and other things like that. But like, you're right. You just kind of been in a warm environment, and all of a sudden it's hunting season. You go out there, and you easily could get in a state of shock, cold, uncomfortable, and you probably might get out of the woods before you want to because you're like sitting there and it's just too damn cold to sit here and bail. But one of those, just thinking about it, like hunting and fishing in the cold, it's another way that like it really brings on breathing techniques, because if you have those techniques of dealing with the cold, like, you're going to be more comfortable and you're going to be more open and free and more enjoyable.
Probably clarity in your mind too, right?
Oh, certainly. I think that kind of every hunter and fisher will probably tell you that it's extremely beneficial in clarity of your mind. Yeah. And doing it in the cold, it kind of forces you to slow your breath down, to kind of ignore that little guy in your head going, man, it's cold. Like, I'd rather be in my recliner drinking some coffee in a nice heated environment. Like, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. And just, you're like, you know what, little dude? You're going to just chill out, and in a few minutes you're going to realize why we're out here and start enjoying, the connection to nature and then just embracing the cold.
Yeah. What's your kind of go-to getaway when life feels too much? Like, what's your adventure of choice?
Well, it's easy for me. It's always been fishing. Fishing has been a staple, and it works every time. Every time I go fishing. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of times it's like, man, I don't feel like really getting the boat out or getting the stuff together, traveling to get there, and it's like I could just sit here and chill. But every time I'm like, gather my stuff and actually go out and fishing, and then you're sitting there and be like, man, how could I even second think coming out here? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm out. Once you're out there enjoying it, you're just embracing the environment, the trees, the birds. Yeah. It's very therapeutic for me.
It's like, I feel that way with camping and hiking. I always dread the pack, though. It's like, it's therapeutic until it comes time to start packing, and you're like, oh shit, I was a terrible Tetris player, so I usually let Paige do a lot of the packing, because like, I'll go like pack the car, and she'll look at it and be like, "You're an idiot," and then just unpack everything and just like put it back. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah, it's
it looks
like,
nice, everything fits properly. Because if it's up to me, like I'm just throwing the gear in the car and like ready to go. And like it's always like that's the most stressful part. But then you get out there, you get set up, you're unpacked, and it's like you remember why you did all that because it's like you're surrounded, and it's just this great feeling now. So we just went through that last weekend. It was actually a week ago from today. I talked about it on the last podcast episode how we kind of had this spur of the moment decision to go, pack up, do some car camping, try and catch a sunset hike, and then turn around within 10 hours with maybe 6 hours of sleep and do a sunrise hike. And we got Wilson with us, so it's like you always got to pack extra stuff for the kids, right? Like extra snacks, extra blankets,
you
like
gotta have those
everything.
snacks.
Yeah, I gotta have the snacks. So, and it was, I spent, oh my god, maybe 2 hours because Paige was still at school, Wilson was still in school, Bexley was still in school, and so it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to have everything ready by the time they got home, and I had a lot of it ready, right? I had, our book bags packed, and I had everything together, but it was like, God, this is time consuming. But thinking back to kind of the moments and those memories that we were that we were able to put together last weekend, it was all worth it, right? And so like having that sense of adventure and having that reset, I think is huge, and it's really neat because everybody has kind of their own go to when life feels kind of heavy or busy, and I'm hoping what we're doing here with Forge and Freedom that maybe people and guys who haven't found that yet can hopefully find maybe that passion or that hobby, whether it be fishing with us or going for a hike or going camping or doing a rock or cold plunge or whatever these activities and side quests are that we've been working and planning on. If somebody is, I think we had a great conversation with Abram DeMarco on Monday over a cup of coffee. We're going to have him on the podcast hopefully soon too. He does leadership consulting, and he had a pretty extensive career in the military in different aspects. And so he had some really good insight for us too. And he's like, we're sitting here having coffee. We're trying to just talk to him about what we're building. And he made a really good point. He goes, well, guys, he's like, I'm your clientele. Why haven't I done it yet? And he's like, I can't entirely tell you why. There's probably some reasons. I've got a busy schedule. I'm really interested in what you're doing. He said, but I'm not from here. He said, I like to fish, but if you ask me right now to say, let's go fishing, I wouldn't know where to go. Right. And so, like, being able to bring some of that experience and expertise to the table is super important. And I feel like whether it be fishing or hiking or hunting, I feel like there's a lot of guys who are interested in doing those, but maybe were never brought along to it, right? Or never learned or never just experienced it. And, I'm doing my hunter safety course right now. And that's one of the first things they say is that, an inexperienced hunter should go with an experienced hunter so that way they can learn kind of just the way of the land, just the techniques, the study of quarry, like all those different things. And we talked about it last week too, that hunting just wasn't those things that we grew up doing, but we're both interested in. And so it's cool to find that, to be following that path and trying to learn that new experience. And, and I'm grateful for you because the last over month we've gone fishing a couple times, and I've always loved fishing. I've just like needed that push to get out and go do it. Right. And so that's been huge. And I appreciate you doing that. And like, that's just this solo individual thing that you've done for me and back and, vice versa. But, if it's working for us, I think something like this could also work for other guys too. You just sometimes need to be, I don't want to say coerced, but like sort of coerced, like just like push, like, or just invited maybe. What about just a simple invite? Like, hey, we're going to do this. You want to try it out?
Yeah, or enticed.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge aspect of this. Is you create a group of guys that all kind of enjoy nature in different ways, and with that comes a certain set of experience. And I think a lot of guys would like to adventure in different ways, and having others that have that experience to tag along with or be invited is going to increase the probability of you actually doing that, especially if you've made some commitments before, like say I'm going to bring you fishing, because that's my go-to, and we're going to go hiking next week,
And that's
you come
that's
fishing,
my thing. Yeah.
and then not only do I feel obligated, I guess, and don't really feel obligated or like enticed, or because you came out fishing. I'm like, oh, I would like to go hiking. So it's just gonna, if it was just me, next week comes along and be like, oh, I don't, whatever, like I don't really not motivated all that much to go hiking. But if you're like, hey, I'm going hiking, would you like to come? That probability of me going hiking, which this is kind of example because I enjoy hiking also, but
Right. It could be anything. It could be hunting.
yeah, or
Like I've been in that position where guys have been like, "Hey, do you want to go hunting?" And I'm like, I've always felt like, man, I've always wanted to hunt, but also there's something about that too, and it's like, there is kind of that masculine side to hunting, and it's like to admit that, hey, I don't hunt or whatever it is, kind of goes hand in hand with what we talk about on the podcast sometimes too. That, I guess the idea that I just didn't want to like seem less masculine because I don't hunt or something like that. Because the reality is that I want to, I've always wanted to, but like being able to get comfortable and come out of your shell, like right now. So I've been on this self development for the last year or so, really just trying to work on myself and just be honest and have those honest conversations. And now I'd be like, yeah, let's go. I've never been, but let's do it. Show me the ropes, But for some reason in the past, I would just kind of steer clear of that conversation and just not do it for whatever reason.
I think a large reason is because we talked about it before, your father, my father really never took the time to bring us out. So there was just, that experience just never happened. So we never kind of brought out and taught that. So I get,
some activities are generational.
Yeah. However, now you're in a position of creating a brotherhood, and now you have guys that enjoy hunting, and making that bond with someone that hunts, and them knowing that you're interested in it. That's that tether to actually do it. That person's going to reach out and be like, hey, I'm going hunting. I know you said you were interested in it. How about we meet here and let's go? And then boom, that connection's made, and it actually have something. That connection is what's making that final thread from you not hunting to you hunting. And I guess that's really what we're trying to succeed here, is bringing in brotherhood and support system, people in different areas that enjoy nature in different ways, helping others experiencing those experiences in the right way, or in a positive way, taking a lot of the kind of fears away.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I like these two words, shared experiences.
Absolutely.
I think it's a strong word, shared experiences. It's like
and connection.
in connection, being able to share your experience and your knowledge and your love for maybe a certain activity with other guys who maybe had been in my position before too, right? I talked about hunting and like not doing it, or you're reaching out or participating for whatever reason, and being able to provide that network or that community where it's like there's no judgment. It's like, I get it. You've never been hunting, you've never been fishing or hiking before. You don't know where the hell to start. That's cool because guess what? There's 50 guys or 100 guys or who knows. My goal is hopefully we get this thing across the country. I don't know. We'll see. We got to start small first. You gotta crawl before you can walk. But
they grow a network across the country. Then you have hunters that have hunted New York State or upstate that want to take their hunting to the next level. When you have, if we tether those connections and brotherhood across country, you have dudes that I'm a moose hunter.
Cool. I'm a deer hunter.
Yeah, I'm a deer hunter. How about you? How about we come out to wherever, do some moose hunting, and the next month or next year, whatever, I come out and do whitetail deer hunting. Like, I've never been that aspect. So blending those together.
Yeah, and those communities definitely exist within the sports or activities themselves, right? Like those communities, those networks, but they're kind of siloed to just that one thing, right? And so the idea is that, what we're trying to build is that we're taking all of these outdoor recreation-based experiences and building a network around all of those. So that way it's not just one specific thing, right? Like I could join or I could be a part of a hiking group right now and probably get a hold of 10, 15 people and we could go meet in, at the White Mountains in New Hampshire, or we could meet in the Adirondacks or go to the Catskills, right? I think that stuff's very easy. But when the focus is on brotherhood, building adventure, having that community and that network to kind of connect all those dots, I think that's really powerful. And I think it should hopefully, the plan is to hopefully get people kind of out of their shell and experience some of these opportunities. And I think that's so important here. I think we're talking about winter to start this podcast. Not having something to do, not having a winter hobby up here in the Northeast is detrimental to health, especially mental health. I've been down that alley before where, just kind of caught up in the winter rat race and it's cold and you get into that seasonal depression, especially after the holiday season. And it's like, man, there was 2 years or so where we were really active. Paige and I, we were winter hiking. We had snowshoes and we were very active in doing that. And you and I had gone skiing a few times, and like the winter went by so much faster when I was doing things and being active. And, I guess I'm blessed in that, I grew up and I learned how to snowboard at a young age. And I guess hiking just kind of came together. So being able to have that opportunity, I understand that not everybody has that same, but it's never too late. Doesn't matter if you're listening to this podcast and you're 21 years old, you're like, man, I've never skied before, or I've never snowshoe hiked or cross-country skied or ice fished. I've never ice fished, by the way. I've got tons of friends that do it. But again, another thing that I've always wanted to do. And just having that one hobby, especially when the weather sucks, is so important. And I can promise you, it makes the winter go by so much faster, keeps you out of that seasonal depression, and like just makes everything a little bit more enjoyable because the winter is so long up here, and I guess it might not be applicable if, you're some asshole living in a nice warm environment 24/7, no offense, but I'm envious. I'm not, because I do love the seasons, to be honest with you. But just when it hits like beginning of February, end of January, and it's freezing, you're like, God, Florida sounds so nice. But
that's when you need.
But that's when you need it.
And extra incentives to just go out and do it. And when you have a group of people that go out and enjoy doing that, you're going to be much more likely to get out in the winter, especially the winter, because the cold sucks. Yeah. Your mind will come up with 1,000 excuses from the time you go from your bed to the front door to go out to, do something in the winter time.
Yeah,
it'll come out 1,000 excuses of why you should stay inside and stay warm. And just having that extra, you know, push, ding on your phone, you look, friends like, hey, I'm going snowshoeing this weekend. Want to go? You know, that's valuable. I mean,
So valuable.
You're much more likely to get out and go.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we talked about in the last podcast was how difficult it is for men, as soon as they get in their 30s, maybe that 30 to 50 or 60 range, to find new friends.
Absolutely.
So if it's difficult to find new friends at that age, and then the likelihood of someone sending you that notification of saying, hey, you want to go do this, it's probably less and less likely. Right, so having something like this network is huge.
Absolutely. When you have a group that it's pretty much pushing that.
Yeah. Do you think we should build an app?
Yeah, I think we should just go all in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but like as you were saying that, something popped in my head. I'm like, wait, what if we built an app? Because I've done it before. I did it for the nonprofit organization I was working at.
To improve communication and
yeah.
And we've talked about this before, creating kind of a platform of, where conversation can be had, but, especially as this grows, to be about a space to be like, hey, I'm going fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to come? Who's in? Or I'm going hiking. Who's in? And then you have a group of guys that are committed for the right reason, right? Because we want to get out, to be connected to nature, so that it improves our well-being, so that we can perform at an optimal level in family, at work,
you name it.
You name it. Just a better son, better,
So that's one of the conversations we had with Abram on Monday, and he said, some of your messaging is really important, right? And so I think one of the key words he brought up was burnout. It's a huge buzzword right now, whether you work corporate or it doesn't matter. The word burnout, everyone's heard it. Everyone, I'm sure, has experienced it, and it probably means something differently to different people, right?
Yeah.
But, have you, I guess, if you take kind of the general sense of the word burnout, right? I think tired, stressed, overworked, whatever the case may be. And it's not so much that you're an inefficient person or an ineffective worker, or, you don't have enough push or drive. I think it actually comes from the opposite. I think it comes from the fact that you are pushing because maybe you're passionate about, whatever it may be that you're doing, or, sometimes there is just part of that piece of life where you work, you take care of your family, right? You take the kids to their sports practices, especially, well, we both have kids in hockey, so we can attest to that. But like just the general facets of life can sometimes just prevent that just brick wall that you run into, and you're like, wow. And it just hits you and just covers you, right? Just washes over you, and you're like, I guess that would be, if I had to describe burnout, and I've been there. Actually,
I think anyone that has aspirations and goals and wants to improve themselves runs into that wall, because
that's a good point.
We don't want to believe that wall is there,
Sometimes
a lot of us, including myself, I mean, don't want to accept our limits until really it kind of forces you to accept them. And I guess what we're trying to do here is prevent that.
Yeah.
Prevent that massive, downshift, because you've pushed yourself so far where, you have to. Rather than being preemptive and, doing things like breath work and getting out, cold plunges, enjoying nature, taking time for yourself, taking time to enjoy your family, understanding the importance of that to prevent running into that brick wall.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of guys, that motivated and want to strive, I'm sure have ran into that wall a few times. I know I have, and you don't want to acknowledge it. You kind of get bounce off that wall, and you kind of get up and like, okay, wall, like here I come again.
Yeah.
Instead of like being objective.
Okay, so we had some technical difficulties there. We just have to do a quick reset, but I want to go back to the point that you were really kind of starting on. You were talking about what happens, when you hit that brick wall, and we're talking about burnout. And so I had a thought that popped in my head. I'm like, man, I don't know how many times I've looked that brick wall in the face and I've seen it, and I'm like, screw it, I'm running through it, right? Because it's like I see something on the other side of it, or I think I see something on the other side of it. But I forget that run through that brick wall is probably going to give me a concussion, or I'm going to get cut up pretty good.
Or kill
right?
you.
Or kill me. Yeah, right. Literally, yeah. Hitting that brick wall, you could just reach that point. And so there's been so many times where I've opted to run through that brick wall when in reality, that brick wall, brick is red, right? There's that wall, so that should be your warning sign to stop as soon as you see that brick wall coming. And so I being 35 now, I'm much more aware and capable of looking at that brick wall and being like, oh, okay, hit the brakes, right? And like not having to hit the emergency brake, just hitting the regular brakes and stopping well in advance before I hit that brick wall. Because I can tell you for a period of time...
You're not stopping. You're still moving forward. You're just choosing to go around the wall or over the wall or create a door and go through the wall.
Yeah, that's, there's periods of time where I choose to maybe go around the wall or, take time to build the door to get through the wall. But I think that also sometimes I just reach the wall and just stop. I do now. I'll reach the wall and just kind of just stop because, whatever the metaphor is, or for the reason that I'm approaching that wall, it's like I've needed to, maybe I've been running too long or been running too hard for too long. So that wall's a reminder to stop and take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Catch my breath and relax.
Break everybody, but we have limits.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've been talking about what does it mean to be a man on the podcast a lot. Len and I talked about it. We talked about it on the first episode we did together. And I think the more conversations I have around that, I keep kind of learning and discovering new things. And when you say limits, I think that's part of understanding what being a man is too, is knowing your limits.
Yeah, and at the same time, a little paradoxical is not knowing your limits to kind of... There is a press to find out what your limits are, which kind of makes it what we're saying a little murky, but there are times, obviously, where, you can get through that wall, but there are those immovable walls, and to kind of zoom out and objectively think, okay, this hasn't worked. Let's try something different. Let's try something new.
Yeah.
And out of that objective view become a brand new pathway of least resistance. I actually have a really good story that I read the other day, and it's about a fly. And we've all seen it before. That fly pressed against the window pane, just buzzing. Buzzing.
I can't stand those flies.
Well, that fly thinks, hey, maybe if I try a little harder, I can get through this window. And it sits there and it buzzes, and you hear the whine of its wings. And it doesn't realize that window, whatever it does or however hard it tries, it's not going to go through it. But it tries. If that fly understood that if it just took a moment, backed up, and realize where it was objectively, and realize that the door is open, and all I need to do is fly a few seconds away, catch the draft of this door, and just follow it out to your freedom. You know, it's like that. If you're too stubborn or think like the same way, or and like before we've talked about, there's a time and place where things sometimes need to be, buckled up and man up and let's get through this. But a lot of times, like, there's immovable objects where that won't work, and you're gonna end up being that fly trying to push through a window plane, and you're gonna die trying. You know, you're gonna try harder and find out that you've spent all your energy, and now you're laying on the windowsill, motionless.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about knowing your limits, it's not saying that, you have this glass ceiling, right? It's that being able to identify those limits and being able to also take a step back for a minute, identify and be like, okay, where can I go next, or where can I continue to push myself? Because really, as human beings, we had a really good discussion about this on the talk, that we have so much that we're capable of, that our brains power us through these supercomputers that can power us. And I mean, you could just look at some of the fascinating people out there. We've had really good discussions about David Goggins, and we say how he's kind of this unique unicorn of a person, but the reality is he's just unlocked his full potential, right? His full, he doesn't believe that he has those limits. And now you have to read into that stuff sometimes. Sometimes people really do have the capability to just push and push like he does. And I think it's very fascinating listening to him. But if you just take bits and pieces, right? And I don't think the idea of some of the stories that he shared is to, like, copy me and do exactly what I did, but like what applies to you in your life, right? And I think that's been pretty helpful for me. But when you think about it in terms of what we're talking about, of limits and what we're capable of, a lot of times we're capable of so much more that we don't even realize, because society's made it easy to, because we're comfortable, right? We have modern amenities, we have electricity, and a lot of us have heat and, a roof over our heads, and we have 10 different places we can go to get food, obviously more. But that has made us...
Yeah, a lot of noise.
Yeah, a lot of noise too, right? So there's, like, if you take all of those components, it's like, it's kind of like it's locking us in a cage a little bit and allowing us to feel that comfortability where it's like, and I'm not saying, don't go to the grocery store and you should forage for all your food. No, I'm not saying that. But, like, the reality is that you can take some of these, like, minor steps, right, in finding hobbies and just getting outdoors to actually be like, okay, I'm discovering what I am actually potentially capable of, right? I realize that I do have more abilities. I start running a mile a day for 2 weeks, and then after that I'm up to 2 miles and 3 miles, right? And it's like, people that do those different things, they realize they are actually capable of so much more, of unlocking that potential. And it's amazing what happens when you just kind of get pushed to that sometimes.
Yeah, and it can be damn right magical when you uncover some layers that you weren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that is pushing through some obstacles and some pain, and going against the current. But I think when you step back and realize, like, what you're made of,
Mm-hmm.
and you're so much more than this physical self, you can achieve greater things, without working harder or pushing yourself to these extremes.
Mm-hmm.
first thing, consistency is the act of doing something consistent so that you progress in a way where your energy is not overstimulated, where you're trying too hard in one area or too much in one period of time. That progression of progress and not becoming that fly, and having the means to be aware of your innate self and being like, okay, step back. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? What can I do different to get the desirable outcome, rather than smashing my face up against this wall or putting my head down and grinding it to the point where I can no more until I'm burnt out.
Catching a fly swatter.
All you're thinking is about killing that damn fly. You're like,
all I'm thinking about right now is how my neighbor's mowing his lawn in the middle of this podcast, and I'm like,
and he hasn't
mowed in like a month and a half, right? And I'm determined that he just keeps going back and forth on this one side of our cedars.
He's mowing the one patch.
And he's just mowing it over and over again. We've been in a little bit of a property dispute, I guess. So he's probably just playing into it. But no, it's just funny. And it kind of leads me into the next segment of obstacles. Just getting to the recording of this podcast today was an obstacle in and of itself, right? We started with the walk, and it's like we both kind of walk every day independently anyways, and you're like, hey, I'll just skip my walk today. We can start the podcast at 9 o'clock if you want. And I'm like, no, let's just walk together. Like, we both like to do that. It's good to start the day, get in the right state of mind going in the weekend. So let's just do it together. So we do our walk, we get done, we get back to the house, get coffee made, get everything set up, and we keep running this classic issue of like trying to get the two microphones on two separate audio channels. For some reason it won't work. Doesn't matter how many YouTube videos we watch and duplicate exactly what they do, and it doesn't work. But anyways, we got one audio wave and we're here, and just as soon as we get the audio working, I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta go get the kids from school, right? And it's just funny when you think about life and sometimes the different obstacles that you have to learn to work with or work around in order to kind of get to your objectives. And I think being of the right mindset is super important. Right?
Oh my God.
There's a period of time.
It's everything.
It's everything. There's a period of time where I just would have been
totally
annoyed. I would have been like, oh my God, I'm not doing this podcast now. Nothing seems to be working right. Like, no. It's like, no, it's fine. Like, we'll go with the flow on it. We'll figure it out, and then we'll get it started, right? And then as soon as we get halfway through this, the gimbal dies, and the phone's flipping around all over the place. So now we got to go back and do some editing. And you just said something really important. You're like,
it's going to cause some cool effect.
Yeah, it's going to cause some cool effect, right? So it's like making sure, like, perception is huge, right? And framing either a moment or a situation is so important. And something as simple as that, right? Like, oh, so I got to do an extra 5 or 10 minutes of editing, so what?
And try to muffle out the sound of
the sound of the guy. But, it's fine. Maybe it'll create this cool background effect noise. I doubt it, but, we're going to work with it either way. So I apologize to anyone listening that hears some buzzing or humming in the background. It's October 10th, and this guy's mowing his lawn for the first time in a month and a half.
Well, what another, like, powerful aspect of uniting with like-minded men. And when you're around someone that is positive, no matter, which is a difficult place to get to, no matter what, find the golden thread or the positivity in it all. That's infectious.
Oh, it's so infectious.
Being around people that can see differently than your perspective.
Especially for people who are empathetic. So people with a deep amount of empathy to sometimes tend to feel other people's emotions, right, or their vibe, and like pick up on it and like consume some of that energy. And I don't think it's always that healthy, unless it's sometimes positive, right? When it's positive, you pick up on it, like everything just feels
No, it works both ways.
positive.
Yeah.
But it does work both ways.
But
for
the
sure.
people that
It's
have
two-way.
that positive flow and positive energy, I'm thinking on the dramatic end, this is kind of, I'd like to believe that I'm pretty positive, but I'm working towards kind of like a yogi kind of thing. But some of those like hippie dudes, I feel like I'm just bringing it back to nature. Like a lot of those guys, you're going to find that they're connected to nature. Like the way they are is because they have that connection to Mother Earth. I would believe it'd be hard pressed to find someone that is in a state of well-being and just sees things on the positive side on a regular occurrence that doesn't participate in outdoor activities, that doesn't go out and gather the energy of Mother Nature. And if that, and that's powerful. And again, creating a group that achieves an increased probability of going out and getting outside, man, it happens. It helps with everything that we've been talking about, like all these
full
different
circle with
frustrating
burnout.
things, like because we're in this place of trying to achieve what we're doing here and getting out in our walk. I bet you our walk had a big problem, or had a big part of just keep on rolling. We maybe didn't go for a walk or didn't have a connection when we walked and just like really enjoying it. We would be like, maybe tomorrow. Let's just call it a day. It's not our day. But we went out, we were connected, we were on a good tune, so let's just roll with it. It's that,
Gave us that clarity, that peace of mind going into it.
But yeah, I know.
Because it probably would have thrown me off otherwise. I probably would have tossed the gimbal across the room or something.
It'd be
no,
certain.
I'm just kidding.
It'd be certain.
No,
But and ditto.
Yeah.
But have you ever like caught yourself like in the middle of a fit and be like, you know what? It's not even that bad. I need to chill the heck out.
All the time.
Like I sound like my damn kids. Like here I am, friggin'.
Yeah. All the time.
Throwing a fit over the friggin' pencil sharpener, friggin' not working properly, or
I'll tell you, it just happened to me last weekend. So Wilson had his first hockey practice on Saturday, and I don't know why this bothers me so much, but like when I can't find something, that's like one of the things that like really sets me off. And like I don't know why. And it was something so simple. It was his hockey girdle, and because it's very frustrating to not have a hockey girdle, right? You gotta like tape your thighs, your socks don't stay up. It's very annoying. But like that, some of those things, if I can't find something, and I'm like, but I know I saw them somewhere, and like I literally turned the house upside down. They were nowhere to be found, and it just like set me off. And I'm like, why? I'm like, why is this one simple thing? It's a hockey girdle. It's fine. It's one day. They're like $20, right? And after his practice, I ended up running up over to Cornwall to play it again. I got him a new set, and he probably needed a new one anyway. Like the Velcro only lasts so long anyway, so I probably would have found them. They probably wouldn't have even worked that well to begin with, but in my head, I'm like, just the simple fact of like, I know they're in this house somewhere, and like that setting me off. I'm like, I don't know why, but it's funny because I did catch myself, and it's funny too because he said something. We're coming back from practice on Wednesday, and we're hanging his equipment up, and he grabs his shorts and he hangs them up. He says, "Good thing we got these, Dad." He says, you were pretty mad you couldn't find these the other day, and I said, I know, bud, but the reality is it's not that important because you got a new pair, right? And the old pair probably weren't even that good to begin with, right? And it's like trying to catch yourself in those moments, especially as a father. Like, God, why something so little to just set you off like that, right? And so I've gotten a lot better in that mindset. I think less and less of that type of situation happens because a lot of times I can recognize it first. I think the fact that we're running late might have added a little bit of pressure to it too. I think if we were on time and I was looking an hour in advance, I would have been like, okay, they're not here. It's fine. We'll go to practice. But I think some of the other pressures pairing with it are probably maybe what set me off. But I would definitely say that being outdoors more, being more active, being more aware of just kind of myself and my surroundings has allowed me to like recognize those situations and not take them so seriously, right? And what that's done for me is allow me to be less stressed, right? To be more clear-minded, to just be probably healthier overall, right? I think when you get like in that type of situation, like your blood pressure skyrockets, and it's like that can't be healthy. So, doing all these things, it's part of that self-development or self-care routine that helps you kind of catch yourself in some of these moments.
Yeah, it's
like the pencil sharpener.
It's that preemptive effect of preparing for difficulties, like going out, hiking, fishing, whatever. You said that's a little easier for you to kind of deal with the stress. Well, because you're more centered. You're vibrating at a healthier frequency because, and that underlying stress, that could be what puts you over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
If you are taking care of that, where the underlying stress isn't there, so that one little thing that could set you off.
Mm-hmm.
If that is taken care of through being connected, then you're a lot less likely to get set off. And I'm the same way. And I've come a long way with frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because it's a simple solution. More centered you are. Another curveball, huh?
It's fine. Roll with it. You gotta take it. We can pause it.
No, it's just it's an alarm for my medication.
Oh yeah, you're good.
So yeah, it's funny because it's a simple solution. Be more connected to yourself and watch your breath.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of those aspects, you're hyperventilating. And I've been doing a lot of breath work, and I recommend it for everyone. And I'm one of those, I know there's a lot of guys that just rolled their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was right there with you.
Yeah.
And once you realize what breath is, and then, right down to religious purpose, like breath, inspiration, inspire is the root of inspiration. Like, it's biblical, like, God is breath.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get upset, it's the hyperventilation that feeds into the stress response.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling yourself, you're telling every cell in your body, like, yeah, this is wrong, and I want more of this frustration, like this energy of frustration. You are announcing it.
Keep feeding it.
And you keep feeding it, and that your body and physical self responds to it. And all you're doing is hyperventilating. When you notice when you're frustrated, pay attention to your breath. The moment you pay attention to your breath and realize, wow, my intervals are very short and I am hyperventilating, and that is the reason why I'm frustrated. Not even whatever it was to get me there.
Yeah, the situation.
The underlying reason is because I'm away from my center and I'm hyperventilating. The moment you start slowing your breath down, and it might take 10, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, but if you focus on that, you have this wave of like, whatever. Kind of like,
The cool down.
okay, there's a you know, there's another route here. Like, I don't need to die on this hill.
Yeah,
because
if you think about it too, like if you're running, and the more you're running, so maybe you're jogging, you go to a sprint, you get done, all you can think about is your breath, trying to catch your breath, right? And how important that is, right, to getting yourself back to a grounded level. Emotions and being in that same state of mind is no different, right? If you're upset, right, and you start breathing harder and whatever, you got to find that breath. It's so important.
You are your breath. I
Yeah.
mean, everything is controlled by the aspect of your mind, and your breath is a critical element to your well-being. And when you realize that, it is profound, especially if you just don't believe in breath, or that something so easy can make a monumental impact. The moment you start getting past those predispositions of what you think it may be, it's infectious.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, well, to rope it into what we're saying, a lot of times is realizing that that wall isn't going anywhere, and just stop bouncing off it and being like, what else could I do? What else is there? Or not even believing what you believe. To question why you believe it. To open the door to, like, maybe there's something here that I do not know. You know, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people to admit that you're wrong. Because in life, you're wrong. About 99.9% of your time, you're wrong. Is when you feel like you're right, you're just a little less wrong. And when we progress through life, we're just a little less wrong, and we're a little bit better at being wrong. But to understand that most of what you believe really isn't, then you're giving yourself empathy. You're giving yourself the space to, like, adjust, rather than being like, no, I'm buckling down, I'm double down, and we're getting through this wall.
Yeah,
like
running through it.
Yeah,
Right?
and
instead of looking for
man,
alternative
I don't know how many
solutions.
times I've done that myself. But yeah, sometimes, like, earlier on our walk, I asked the question, like, what would it take for someone to realize, like, some of these deeper connections to oneself without having to go through hell and back and bouncing off the bottom? For me, it was health issues. Really pressed my boundary to realize, okay, I cannot stop. I have to stop smashing into this wall. It is there and it's not going away. To step back and be like, okay, what's an alternative to progressing forward? And breath was monumental in that progression, my progression.
The identification, yeah. And I shared with him my theory on that too, is that it's not a natural thing, but we have somehow naturally learned to basically take our health problems, and I'm not saying everybody, but maybe this just applies to me, I don't know, but being able to naturally take our health problems or our traumas or our issues or our confidences and kind of put them to the back of our head, right? To the back of our brain where we just kind of, it's there. It's not going anywhere. We just have learned to live life without thinking about those until, like you mentioned, until you hit rock bottom. And then the first thing that comes rushing up is everything that you had packed back in your head, and this now comes rushing forward, and then you now are now faced with whatever it is that's making you hit and bounce off the bottom. But then now you're also feeling the pressure of all of these things coming back forward, right? And so that's, in my opinion, not healthy. It's not something that it's something that I've experienced in my own self. And then it's like, okay, you can't keep packing stuff in the back. Bring it to the front, or bring one thing at a time to the front and work on identifying it, right? What is the problem, right? Or what is the concern, or, whatever it is that you pack away and try not to think about. What is it you bring to the front, and then work on identifying it and getting over that. So that way, next time you bounce off the bottom, it's not the first thing that comes rushing forward that you now have to tackle on top of everything else, right, that you now have to get around. So I think I feel like it's a common thing, but it's not a natural thing. But we have somehow naturally progressed to being able to live life because, I think we're trying to make sure that we're still having a good quality of life. And though that might be a good short term, it might work in the short term that you may not have to think about it, right? I put it away, pack it away, put it up in the attic. That's great. But at some point, if you put it up in the attic, you're going to sell the house, and you got to clean that attic out, right? That was pretty good. I came up with that on my own. That was a good analogy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, I've been shit at analogies most of my life, but ever since, this last year or so, I've been working myself. I've been, I just kind of come up with these different analogies, and I'm like, I give myself grace. I'm like, that's a pretty good one. And then there's some times I've said that one's kind of corny, but it's interesting what happens when you find clarity and peace of mind.
Flow state.
Flow state.
If you sat there and tried to think of analogies,
you just let them happen. So I wanted
sitting there beating your head off the wall.
Yeah,
you're gonna flow.
Yeah, just let them flow. I want to go back to something. So we had talked about breath work and the stigma around breath work, and like, oh man, granola eating yogis, right? Like general perception, right? Or that's the perceived public perception, or whatever it may be, right?
Or part of our, we kind of agreed, and it goes with what you just said earlier, the conditioning, the standard conditioning. K through 12. And
yeah. So I want to say there's something else that I was surprised and actually started to put into my own practice. I don't do it every day. I should do it more often, but I've done it enough where I'm like, wow, this is pretty nice. It's called grounding. So I was listening to a podcast, and I was surprised to hear that this NFL linebacker takes his shirt off every day and goes out and just lays in the grass, in the ground. This is a guy who absolutely destroys people on Sunday afternoons. His muscles are the size of, I guess my midsection. And, this guy goes out and he just lays in the grass, with his shirt off, and just grounding. And he's not the only one. To find, and you think about, especially football players. We were football players, and you think top masculine, top of the food chain, like strongest man that you can possibly be, or try to be the strongest person. Hard mentality, all of it. To then find out that one of the biggest linebackers in the NFL is going to lay in his backyard to ground, and has found productivity in that, improvement in his own life, and then other guys, right, other professional athletes doing yoga, right, and like all these things where they're stigmatic in the conditioning of like, this is my image of someone who does yoga, right, or this is someone who grounds or hugs trees, or whatever it is. Like, that's not true. None of that's true, because that guy then goes out and lights people up on Sunday afternoon. And it's like, damn, maybe that's why I sucked as a cornerback in high school. It's better on offense. No, other way around. But maybe I just need to ground a little bit more. Maybe I need to take my shirt off and go lay in the backyard. I might have been a little bit better. I don't know. But like it's interesting to see why
Well, think
that helps them focus, right? And feel that improvement. But
think about the stigmas that are created around it. It's pulling you away from those natural means. It's pulling you away from the belief that something like grounding or breath work or stretching could have an impact like that.
mm-hmm.
It pulls you away from your center. It makes you more focused on someone else, something else. What do I need? What do I have to buy? What do I have to have so that I am a man? When you realize that all those external things and those stigmas are pulling you away from your true self, like then you get into guys that NFL players grounding and professional athletes, they're looking for every edge. So they're not doing this if they don't believe it gives them an edge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like evidence right there. Something is easy and free. Free is hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that asshole that wants to sell you something.
Yeah.
There is always something that will improve. I mean, just in that area alone, breath work, there's a dozen different devices.
I was that asshole for
years.
I've been that
asshole
sell you a
too.
Used vehicle.
We've all been that asshole. But we've grown.
Yeah.
And you would probably agree. I think a better version of myself is one that's grounded.
Mm-hmm.
One that is focused on self rather than I have this issue and it's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, no, what am I doing that could contribute to this issue? Rather than looking for an external excuse to excuse yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The power of looking at yourself, looking in the mirror, and taking full responsibility for your actions and a lot of times the actions around you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can always find a way to revert that finger pointing, because it's so easy to do and so many of us want to. And I think that's like the biggest unmanly thing to do. You want to talk about toxic masculinity. Like, when I think about it, it's a man that doesn't have the confidence to be like, I was wrong.
Or to understand the responsibilities.
Yeah, or even to take any responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
I so many times throughout my life, and I've done it too, especially when I was a child. Like, it's always because it's my sister or or someone else. But I feel like a masculine man, and if I'm being my most masculine self, it is the strength to be aware of myself and confident enough to take responsibility for my actions at all costs. If it was wrong, it was wrong. If it was right, it's right. You take responsibility for both ends. And how impactful that is for progression. You want to talk about spinning in circles. Put everything on to someone else. It's all someone else's fault. You're going to sit there friggin' the same place. But if you start taking responsibility, boy, the growth that comes from that.
Yeah. We have degrassed the idea of what is it to be a man over the last maybe 100 years, and Joby Martin puts it perfectly into words.
It's a hot topic right now.
So he pointed out that, 100 years and beyond, there was this clear, delineation between man and boy, right? And then there was this traditional, Maybe it's a journey or a phase, where you become from a boy to a man.
Yeah,
Today,
like a
today it's
celebration or
right, and today it's adolescence in the dude era, right? And there's so much, and he talks about the danger in that because the dude era is like not understanding responsibilities, and it's boys teaching other boys what it means to be a man instead of men who truly understand what it means to be a man teaching the boys the way that it was 100 plus years ago, right? And so we've allowed that to happen, and then it becomes about, you know, who can have the biggest truck or who can have the biggest muscles or, who's the best, football player or whatever it is. And that's how we identify, you know, who's the best man, right? Or, is that the picture of the modern era man? And the reality is it's not, you know, it's just
absolutely.
not. And that idea has really kind of allowed us to degress over the last 100 years from understanding that. And it's great to see this kind of push or this ability of people to recognize and understand, like, okay, we got to kind of take the reins back on this a little bit and redevelop this, right? And it's cool to see the people that are involved in this not running through that brick wall right now, stopping, taking a breath, and looking for the alternative solutions and the way around. I think that's where we're at right now.
Certainly. It's such a loaded question right now. What is it, what it is to be a man?
Mm-hmm. Did you get a chance to watch? So it was a long episode. It was Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom with Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
and I think towards the end of it, they got into a really good conversation about about manhood and why kind of there is this discussion, and to some degree, there has been some kind of an attack on men, right?
To
And
a
it's
certain
like
degree.
you can try to pin it back to the Me Too movement, maybe, which, and the reality is that both men and women on both sides, there's going to be good and bad. There's going to be people who do what they're not supposed to do, right? Men and women alike. And there were certainly men in situations of power abusing that power, and I think they deserve every right to, if they're abusing that type of power, they deserve every right to be outed and identified for that. But unfortunately, I think what happened was kind of like politics. It's hard. There's not a lot of people in the middle. It's kind of, you have to pick your side, right? And so it went maybe to the extreme where it just started to then generalize all men, unfortunately. And I don't think that was the idea or the plan. So I think it's trying to take a little bit of that aback and say, hey, that's not me. I don't agree with that situation or that group or of people, of bad actors. But the reality is that there's bad actors everywhere, right? Man and woman, boy and girl, occupation-based people, whether you're in the medical field or, whether you're investor or in stocks or whatever, right? It's like there's just bad actors across the board, and it's like we don't try to say that, okay, because this doctor was doing malpractice, all doctors are bad, right? But unfortunately, I think we got caught up into that, and so some of this discussion is now saying, okay, we got to unpack this a little bit. Let's pump the brakes, and let's not continue to allow people and men in power to abuse that. But also, let's not keep stepping and on guys' necks in order to make it justifiable. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
Must have grace
Mm-hmm.
on both ends. We try to define it, and everybody has a different definition, but like find that groundedness and be yourself, and like stop judging people for their skin color, for their sex, for what they believe in, what they don't believe in. Find common pathway, I think, is like the most important here, because I'm almost tiptoeing around, I guess, the discussion, because it can bring up frustration and anger, you know, because there's a lot of like
that's
out there that's telling me what I shouldn't be, and I am biology. I am built. I'm biology. Why? I don't know. I'm stumbling over that word, but I'm created in a certain way, in the exact way God intended, and it kind of comes back to this conditioning or ways to pull people's power from them and to try to minimize a sex. It's just, it's difficult. It's difficult to tolerate.
Yeah.
And I think
And it
that's
could
when
be
you
unintentional.
get into that, yeah, and you get into that overcompensating. Like,
Yeah,
you
the
know, I am a
overcompensation.
man. Like, get in my, you know, you get in my pathway and I'm going to destroy you. Like,
Yeah. And yeah, definitely overcompensating, but also like, what am I looking for here? Not being afraid to call a spade a spade. Like, it is what it is. Like, it happened. There was a period of time where it happened, and I think that probably wasn't the intention when it originally happened. But you know, I think as men, we also have to take accountability for that too, right? Like, were there people in all these, I guess, what we see, public or high level positions, that didn't call it out, right? And so it's like we also have to be able to, as a man, be accountable for that too.
yeah, and not be afraid to be ourselves, regardless of what anyone else says.
Yeah.
The fact is that we were created differently, and we both have strengths and weaknesses. So let's celebrate them rather than depict them and tear people apart for their differences.
There's a question. Hold on. I've written something down I was looking for. Oh, this is a good one. So, what's something that you believed 10 years ago that you don't anymore?
I almost have a hard time distinguishing, or really have a hard time what is not different. I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, I also have went through a very difficult journey that not a lot of people go through. And I know we all have our difficulties, and there's something about having your power taken away from you, and talk about being a man and masculinity and all this stuff. Like, that definition truly changes when it is taken away from you. What I have always leaned on was that strength, was that masculinity power of bucking up and just being overpowering things. And when that was taken away, it redefined how I viewed the world in profound ways, and has shaped me in so many different ways. And that's really why I've talked a lot about being centered and the grounded and the breath work. You can hear it in my words and what I choose to say, because I've had it taken away from me and have had to reposition, and it was not comfortable. And it's still to this day, like, really hurts. And I truly miss that aspect of sheer strength and grit and being able to just go and open it up. And that has forced me to really just slow down, and that I found the truth in oneself, and that's being centered and slowing down and understanding that we are what we think we are, in a way that you need to be careful what you say about yourself. You need to be careful about the energy that you present, and you need to be careful about the energy that you surround yourself by, because the power in those intrinsic places, those deep, unphysical, or kind of that woo-hoo place, the unconsciousness of who you believe you are, like, to actually really understand that is it can be very transformational. And I might have gotten a little away from what the question was.
I mean, a lot can change in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Especially 10 years, so it's a decade, right? And so if you think of our age now, 20, you're going from your mid-20s to your mid-30s. I think it's pretty natural progression for life to slow down to a degree, right? And kind of get into this groove almost, right, of family and work and routine and responsibility. And like that's kind of how society has laid it out, right? And there's people on the outside who doesn't follow that same path, and I think that's great. Like, there's no path, there's no right path. It's like whatever works for you, whatever your goals and objectives are as a person with a family, or whatever you want to do. There's no linear path to what's right or wrong. But the people that do choose the path of that we've chosen, of family, of work, and those types of responsibilities, like, I embrace them. I love to get right into them, but also I need that constant reminder to also find that reset, right? And I talk about this a lot, and I'll probably talk about this every single podcast episode because it's so important. And like the people that we're trying to reach and bring into Forge and Freedom, it's like there's so many people in this identifiable situation where it's like guys are investing all their time to their company, to their family, to their kids, to whatever it may be, that, I tend to idolize those that really have a passion and a hobby, that can really find the time and the space for that. And it's like, if we can help more people do the same thing, I think it's huge. And I think it can come back both personally, but also in the outputs of being able to help other guys in similar situations, right? Kind of going full circle back to the beginning of this conversation anyways. But, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Opening up, and yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, I kind of lost my train of thought there, where I was going.
That's all good.
Can you ask the question again?
I don't really know that there's a question in there. I think it was kind of, the original question was, I got a lot of content written down here. I think I asked, like, what's something you believed 10 years ago that you don't anymore?
Yeah, and it kind of spun off of that.
Yeah. This is a good one. What's something you think men need to talk about more?
I guess the first thing that jumped to my head, but trying to, it's like myself's trying to prevent that mushy gushy shit, but if I'm being real here, it's feelings. Like, I think that we need to be honest, I guess, when we talk about feelings. There's no benefit to, especially, like, in multiple different ways, but, like, if someone asks you a question, to kind of just tell them what they want to hear is, not beneficial. But if you're telling them what, like, you're truly feeling, it's powerful.
Yeah, men have I feel like men have the idea or the role of sometimes being the protector, right? And so, not everybody, but in a lot of situations, it's like, okay, I'm just going to avoid it, or, not go back to that conversation because I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, right? I want to try to protect them. I found myself in that situation in my own marriage with my wife, where it's like, maybe it was a micro argument or something like that, and instead of just being honest about how I feel about a situation, I'm like, I don't want to hurt, I don't want to upset, I don't want to hurt her feelings, right? But the reality is that that's not helping anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you got to be honest. Like, if you're like, hey, I don't, I think we should maybe do this, or we should look at this, or what are your thoughts on this, right? Instead of, and how you frame it is super important, your tone and how you approach it. But just altogether avoiding it, oof, that's not good, because that shit just then bottles up, and then, maybe it creates a bigger argument down the road or something. But, like, especially with marriage too, super important. I think it's applicable in all situations, friendships, coworkers, but in a marriage, oof, that is so important to have just that open, honest conversation when things, if something bothers you, or if you just truly need help with something, just like saying it and not trying to guess what the other person's thinking is so important.
Absolutely.
And there's an art, and there's kind of an art to it. Like, you kind of have to, you have to develop that, right? Because it's not a natural thing.
Yeah, I think for some others it might be more natural than
some people. Yeah.
But yeah, just a relationship in general, especially a husband-wife relationship. There's so much give and take. Like, I don't know if there's a single thing on this planet that has changed me more than my wife.
Same.
It has, and it's been a wonderful experience. And it's also been, hard. Because
if anybody tells you that it hasn't hard, then that's just a lie, right? Because, like, it is hard. It's hard for both parties.
Absolutely.
And then you throw kids in the mix, and it gets even harder.
Yeah.
Right? And other obstacles. So.
But that the benefit from being kind of challenged in ways that others just won't. Like, I know my wife's my one of my truest and most honest critics. And she has helped me grow in so many ways. And I haven't always been, like, I guess, open to that growth. Like, there's kind of some pushback of what I, believe I am, and don't get me wrong. There's some that I still stand for, and some, that I'm like, oh, okay, I see it your way.
It takes time, because it's easy to go on the defensive, right?
Oh, that's my natural thing.
You're natural to go on the defensive and be like,
no,
because that's gonna break me down, right? Like, oh, I was wrong, or you know what I mean?
Going back to those feelings, you're gonna make me freaking look in
Right.
and start checking the way I feel about this.
But being able to identify, this is something that I'm really proud of the work that I've done, is being able to identify where some of that critique comes from. It's not out of a place of character flaw or, you're a piece of shit or you're not a good husband. It's actually from a place of like, no, like, I see you. I see you. I know exactly what you're capable of, right? And it's like, it comes from a place of love, right? It comes from a place of being able to be like, your wife should be your biggest cheerleader, right? And if they're giving you something, it's because they're just trying to help you be the best version of yourself. Now, if you read into it and it's just all defensive and it's like, that's not me, that's not, you're wrong, or whatever the case may be, like, you're not helping yourself, right? Like, your wife, even if it seems like nitpicking sometimes, maybe that's just a cry for help without being able to come out and be like, hey, can you just, when you see this, I don't know what it is, instead of putting your clothes on the ground, can you just throw it in the hamper, right? Or if you see the garbage is full, can you just grab the garbage and take it out, right? So I don't have to like say little things for you to do. And being able to identify those little things that just help, right? Because women, especially mothers, they bear so much burden and responsibility themselves too, right? They're always kind of the kids' caregivers, right? And they do so many things. They work and they just take care of everybody. And sometimes they don't take that moment to reflect themselves too, right? Sometimes they just need to be, they need to be seen, right? And so being able to help and learning to communicate with them and allowing to identify where sometimes that communication comes from is super important, and not getting defensive. And it's just a man's typical responsibility, like you said, to just puff your chest up because, I don't know where it comes from or what the concern is. Maybe it's because you don't want your wife to look at you as weak, right? You're like, oh, she can't look at me as weak because then I'm just a weak man and she's not going to want me, right? And there's probably some natural, I think there is natural attraction for women to really like, to feel safe, right? To feel like they've got strength. You don't have to go against any of those same principles or characters by not doing some of those other things too. Like, you can balance both of those things. You can be her strength, you can be her protector, but also be able to communicate clearly, right? And also be able to receive that communication back in a way that it's not breaking you down as a person, as a man, but that it's, hey, listen, I care about you and I protect you and I hear you, right? I'm going to do that. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And yeah, back to the growth that comes from that,
Yeah.
of kind of, okay, stepping back, and I guess like with the theme of this podcast, stepping back and not running into that wall, like not getting defensive and having that standard approach to instead kind of letting that guard down, open it up, and be like, okay, she's doing this in a pace of love and understanding, and and we're doing this back and forth to grow to be better individuals, and what a gift that is, having someone that wants the best out of you, is your cheerleader, and I cherish that, and it's really helped me grow, and I think learning how to deal with constructive criticism, and rather than getting all upset because you don't see it that way, expressing yourself in a way that's authentic and comes from love back, like to have the resolve to breathe, calm down, and be like, this is the way I feel. Rather than getting upset and throwing out stuff that you don't really mean, and, you know, yelling and puffing up and all this stuff, to just slow down, breathe, take in what was said, and then express yourself.
Yeah.
This is how it makes me feel, and then kind of like put it in their court to kind of do the same thing, translate it. I feel like that opens that door of communication, because if you do get, you know, in that area that we've been talking about, puffing up and closing off, like you said,
Getting egotistical,
getting nowhere, and
Yeah.
the relationship's going to just continue to, you know, have resistance.
Do you know the phrase "happy wife, happy life"?
Absolutely.
I think that it's a dangerous phrase. I think it's as dangerous
I would
phrase
agree.
as suck it up, be a man, right? From the sense that if you think about that phrase, you're like, happy wife. Okay, so I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to make my wife happy. Right? I'm gonna tell her maybe something that, you know, that she wants to hear. But when in the reality is that maybe she does need to hear, you know, something that she doesn't want to hear, because it's, again, from that place of love, or it's from a place of, you know, maybe your own personal need too. And that's the only way to make sure that you are doing that give and take, is just being honest and pure in your conversations with each other. And so that phrase, happy wife, happy life, like, man, that's some of these phrases that have been embedded into our culture and that conditioning and passed on from generation. Like, we got to break free of some of this stuff, because it just implies a wrong sense of direction and meaning, right? And it's not working.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself for anyone.
No.
And
neither should, you know, if you're a husband or a wife, neither of you should have to sacrifice.
Yeah, ditto both ways.
Ditto both ways, 100%.
Because you're both responsible for oneself, right? And I think a healthy relationship is when both parties are responsible for their own self. We are not meant to carry the burden of others. We can be a support, and here and there carry some of that burden, but it's not really our responsibility. Like, we can take it away from the husband and wife thing, take it in all relationships.
Friendships,
I
sure.
can't help you help yourself. Like, I can maybe give you some insight to further your progress towards helping yourself, finding yourself. But I can't take your burden. I have my own burden, my own self to care for. And I think that phrase, happy wife, happy life, and I completely agree with you.
And it doesn't mean that I don't want my wife to be happy.
Absolutely.
It just means that in the way that the phrase is analyzed, I guess, is not the right. I mean, I'm not the person to say right or wrong, but in my version or my take of the phrase, it's like, that's not how I want my wife to be happy. I want her to be able to, you know, be open and honest, and vice versa, right? And be happy in the sense that we can openly communicate and have, you know, both shared ideals and objectives, but also opposing ideals and objectives, and be able to come to an agreement, or to come to an understanding, or to understand each other's sense of where it comes from. And I think those same values I try to put in my friendships too.
Yeah.
You know, like, there were some things on the conversation today that I didn't quite, I'm not going to say I disagreed with you, but I also needed curiosity, right? I need curiosity. I needed to keep an open mind to be like, let's get that perspective, right? Because I don't know the answer, but it's like, I need to see both sides. I need to be able to see your side, right? And whether I agree or whether or not, to understand and have that agreement on opposition sometimes is really important in marriage and friendships, and co-worker, colleague relationships, anything.
Yeah, and it goes down to not knowing, to realize that we don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way you put that because...
And you're allowed to have your beliefs.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, no one should be able to tell you what you should or shouldn't believe, right? But what you can control is how you are able to see someone's perspective and frame without in a way that casts judgment or right or wrong, right?
Well, a lot of us have that thing that kind of goes off, like, I don't agree with that, and just shut off. I feel like that's a natural thing, and a lot of people do that. However, like what you just said, you may not agree to it, but you're open to it. The curiosity. Because there's always something, even if 99.9% of it you disagree, there's always something in there that you can take from it. I think being open to that and getting into that place of curiosity, especially what we were talking about, and I'm trying not to get into it, but it's deep. It's a convoluted.
Or you can
question.
have full episode on it.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is like really like in the depths of what we are, down to like quantum mechanics stuff, is the curiosity is what helps you find yourself into those means, into a deeper discovery of oneself. That I don't agree, block, and just don't take it in, you're not going to find yourself that way.
No, for sure.
And there are some toxic stuff that we obviously have to kind of like step away from because it's just harmful.
Sometimes people.
Yeah.
Sometimes people in your life that you just, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's
situations.
I can't allow that energy or whatever. But I think in most aspects, when people are, especially like us, on that, like we're both open being ourselves. We're not, it wasn't like I was pushing myself onto you. It was in...
No, and you weren't reserving yourself to worry about how I was going to feel.
No, we're both on expressing each other of where we view it and to find a deeper understanding of each other. And that convoluted question, a lot of it could be like, what in the heck is he talking about? Like, our reality isn't created from reality, it's generated from what we believe it is. And getting into that deep into a discussion of this paradoxical place. So just us being open, being honest, that goes right down to what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, and you can support your friends, and you can support people
and disagree
disagree at the same time. And I recommend you do, and you should. I think that's what we're about. If you want to be honest and open and learn more about yourself, then that's the way to do it, right? And have that open mind. If you want to stay in a box, then you surround yourself with yes people. People who share, even when they think, you've got an idea, it's a shitty idea, but they say, yeah, it's a great idea, keep going for it, right? It's like, you're not going to grow that way. You surround yourself with yes people, everything that you do, you don't do anything wrong, you're not going to grow. And you want to grow as a person, as a man, surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you. And with that, you have to kind of get comfortable with being a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's funny, no one likes a yes man. Like,
Unless you want to be in that box. Unless you want somebody, you know what I mean? If you kind of want it to be.
yeah, and if
And,
you're
and
on a
there's,
path of improvement and I guess, finding your limits,
Mhm.
pressing those limits, and constantly improving and striving for greatness. Yeah, you don't need a yes man.
and again, it goes in the balance too of still supporting, right? And still having those. So someone that can challenge you, like your best friend should be able to challenge you when they think something's right or wrong. Well, no, in the situation, when something's wrong, if they think something is wrong or they don't agree, right, or they think you're making a bad decision, they should be able to challenge you. But then at the same time, when things are right or things are really good, they should be able to lift you up at the same time. They should be able to do both.
I would agree, but
There shouldn't it
I
shouldn't
guess
be
the
one
way
shouldn't
the
be
way
totally
you,
lopsided, right? So someone shouldn't just be totally negative the whole time in everything that you do or everything that you say, but they also shouldn't be totally positive in everything, right? If especially if it's something that they maybe don't agree with or they don't have that side, they should challenge you to some degree. There should be that balance,
certainly,
yin and
but it
yang.
shouldn't be concrete.
No, it should
Be
never
like,
be
you're
concrete.
wrong,
No, it
and
should
like,
never be.
done.
No,
You're just wrong.
should be able to identify like what those moments are.
Yeah.
You know, when that's needed.
I don't agree, and here's my point of view. You know,
Yeah. All right. Listen, we got into some deep discussion here. Let's lighten it up a little bit with a quick. I call it lightning round. So I got a few questions. Just answer one or the other. Ready? Okay. What's your favorite type of coffee? Like light, medium, dark?
dark,
Dark. Me too. Sunrise or sunset?
sunset,
Tent or cabin?
tent,
Tent for sure. Axe or knife?
knife,
Mountains or water?
water.
All right. This one, neither of us drank. It's ironical because neither of us have drank in the last year, but there was a period of time where we did, right? In our younger days.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say our younger days. We're 30, mid-30s. When we did, what was your choice? Beer by the fire or whiskey on the rocks?
Beer. I never. Short period of time of getting into whiskey, and yeah,
Short-lived whiskey moments.
that was that pulls out that toxic masculinity for sure.
yeah.
It's hard to keep that in check.
Yeah, man.
I don't think there's been too many more times that my chest has been puffed up on whiskey.
Yeah. we maybe we'll share some stories in future episodes, but it's not going to happen right now. Cold plunge or hot sauna?
Cold plunge.
Yeah. What's the best camp meal you've ever had?
Ribeyes.
Open flame over the fire, right?
Yeah.
What is one thing that's always in your pack?
It's a pretty easy one, but I just jumped to my head first, second, and third is water.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's totally important. Okay. That's the end of the lightning round. That's pretty good. It's interesting when
That's
you
fun.
learn about somebody when you just ask quick questions like that to wrap things up, especially when you get into deep dive into conversations, lighten it up a little bit.
Well, it's interesting what you learn about one another and yourself by doing something like this podcast and talking about it.
Oh, 100%.
This has been fun. It's exciting. It's pushed me out of my norm.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've grown within the short few weeks and inspired. I'm inspired from you and what you've already accomplished to this point. And yeah, I look forward to keeping this rolling, keeping this fire burning.
Yeah, thank you,
adding
man.
some wood to it and getting this thing friggin' bonfire type.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate you've since the foundation before I even kicked this thing off. We sat down, we were watching football, and I said, "Hey, check out this website that I built." And you're like, "Man, I think you might have something there." And so, I guess going back to the conversation we had, that's kind of one of those reassuring moments, right? And I'm sure on this journey, there's going to be some things that you'll challenge me on, and I hope you do, for the better. I think coming with me on Monday to go have coffee with Abram and getting his honest feedback, I think is part of that, right? It's all part of that growth journey. It's part of learning. It's part of being open-minded and just figuring out, where does this go from here? Because it's so green as an idea, and as there's a bunch of people. I'm not gonna say there's a ton, but there's quite a few out there, in Utah and in the Midwest, and in different places, and they do similar things, men's retreats or guys trips or these different things. It's not competition. These guys that I've talked to that are doing similar things, everybody views it as opportunities for collaboration or to share ideas or resources, because everybody realizes there's something deeper here, right? And I think about what we're doing, and it's like, it's kind of the typical man's mentality to be competitive, right? To want to crush the opponent and do everything. But like, that's not the case with this. And I think that's really cool because it's about the mission and recognizing that everybody does things a little bit differently, right? So it might be, doing retreats and doing, total holistic wellness and journaling and different things like that. Or some, it might just be totally rugged adventure. And, for us, it's kind of like a balance of everything. And so recognizing that everybody does this a little bit differently is really cool. And of course, especially in the internet, you start to see like-minded people, right? The algorithm catches up and they're like, okay, this is what you're about. So other things start to pop up. So it's, I guess I'm maybe just now recognizing it because of that. But it's cool to see that this is kind of really taken off and people are reaching out about it. I think that's the big thing, is the fact that maybe we haven't had anybody join a side quest yet, but I can tell you by looking at the website, there are people from around the entire country that are repeat visitors to the website. There's people that have put the Brotherhood weekend, the Brotherhood Breakthrough weekend in their cart, but haven't, clicked shop now. And so it's there. It's just a matter of continuing to have these types of conversations with you, continuing to just keep doing what we're doing so people can see the impact, to see the grit, the determination, to see that we're just not two guys sitting at a table, blowing hot air, that we walk every step of this journey, and we live and breathe the mission of Forging Freedom as individuals, as husbands, as fathers, and all we're doing is saying, hey, here's your invitation. We're not going to plant our ideals or our beliefs or tell you what to do or what to think. It's totally up to you. But listen, if you want to find a way to get yourself grounded and to reset and to go back to the beginning of this conversation of burnout, you want to avoid that burnout, or maybe you're in burnout right now, then come join us, because we'll help you reset out of that burnout, because I can tell you I've been there many, many times before, and I didn't know how to get myself out. And it's taken some really hard moments and really hard conversations in my life to be able to learn how to do that. And shit, if I can do that and sit here and have a conversation with you right now and talk about some of these very difficult conversations and topics, then I can do that with anybody. And I can help be the person that I needed in those moments when I didn't know or I didn't have that same support or those same resources. And I think that is so important. I think every guy needs to have that.
Yeah, I would agree. And the position I've been in, I've brought it up multiple times. Dealing with health, chronic illness, I've been in those isolated areas of just closing off people, and it's funny how life works sometimes, because this feels like part of my comeback. And getting out, just between you and I, like, we've get in contact more often because of this, been out. It's just, it feels right, it feels healthy. It's
brought us closer together.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's
of the most recent years. It's kind of brought us back to that same closeness and camaraderie that we had when we were younger.
And the funny thing is with that, we were on sports teams, and you just tend to be with one or another more, and you tend to have those conversations when you're around and being challenged. And here we are, pretty much creating an environment like a sports team, creating a group of people that have similar goals to improve, to hit reset buttons, to avoid burnout, to just regain themselves. And yeah, it's I feel like it's powerful, and I think the more we show ourselves and be true and have these conversations, I think I've said it before in the other podcast, it's infectious. It's people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, you know what? That sounds pretty nice, to have a real conversation, to open it up a little bit about some vulnerabilities, and also talking like truth, and also talking about things that I enjoy doing and doing more of them, and coming together to improve, like all that's benefit. You're going to become a better individual, and by that you're going to become a better father, son, friend, co-worker, and that's awesome.
That's it. I want to just touch on something real quick before I wrap this whole episode up, but I like, and it was a thought that popped in my head, the point of, when you're younger, you're on sports teams and you're involved, and, if you're fortunate to go on and play college sports, and, there's maybe 2% of the population that go on to continue to do that, but for those that don't, you fall off after that. You kind of lose, not that they fall off as a person, but that you fall off in the ability to get that type of camaraderie, especially for guys. I mean, you go play beer league softball, you play pickup hockey once a week, and which I do, and I enjoy it, and I think I find some of that in that, but it's not the same as when you're younger. You don't have those same opportunities when you become an adult, because you're not at practice every single day. You're not gritting it out in games, right? And so I wonder if that's why a lot of guys...
bus ride.
Yeah, a 2-hour bus ride, and being able to have conversations, and you're not with each other when you're wet and cold, from the rain, or you're tired after, coach just sprinted you for the practice, or, whatever the scenario may be. And I wonder if that's why a lot of men, dive into their work, right? It's like, especially if you're a sports, and not every guy is, was the sports, oriented person, but if you were in that type of frame or in that type of interest when you were younger, I feel like you're more likely to dive into your career, have, just as a way to kind of just keep hold of those same things, right? Maybe the spirit of competition or the spirit of team or whatever it may be. But then again, now you're overcompensating, because when you're younger, you don't have the exact amount of responsibilities, when you're 15, 16, as you do when you're, in your 30s and have kids and a wife and a family. And you have responsibilities. They just shift and they change, right? And now you have people who also depend on you as well, right? So just kind of a thought that popped in my head, and maybe this would be a good conversation for a deeper discussion on another episode. But okay, listen, thanks for joining me again today. Thanks for going on a walk this morning. Got the dog out. We had some good kind of warm up conversation. Just enjoyed the time. I'm always grateful for the time that you give me in your busy schedule, and I like to be able to take the time when I can to clear my schedule too, to spend these moments with you and have these conversations, because I can tell you every time I walk away from one of these, sometimes, well, this is the second time it's been on the microphone, but every time that we've had these types of conversations off the microphone, I can tell you it's definitely a reset for me. Like, I can just feel myself going back to my wife and my kids, or my work, and just feeling like, oh man, I just feel a lot better, right? And it's not that same type of feeling that I tried traditional therapy before too, and it's like, maybe that wasn't for me. It's not that there was anything wrong with it, and it works for some people, but like, I like to do just these casual conversations. It just feels like it flows and is a little more natural. And it's great too with someone. You can have a hard conversation with someone that knows you already, right? I think is really important. So I always appreciate these. But I think the plan, we're gonna keep having episodes together, right? And I'm occasionally gonna mix in some guests.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep it flowing.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think this feels right. Seems like the right format. I did a solo podcast a couple of days ago. It was okay. It's kind of awkward talking to yourself.
You did a good job.
It's like, thank you, I appreciate it.
Good.
I did a couple takes. There's just something about just like sitting here in my not my living room, my kitchen, and like looking at the camera and having a microphone and just like talking to nobody. Even though I know I could be potentially talking to a million people, you never know. But I do like the idea of having casual conversation with someone instead. Maybe that's just from the lack of working in an office these days. But no, I truly appreciate being on this podcast again, and I look forward to our next episode.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and yeah, I'm excited to keep this rolling. Anytime you want me, just hit me up.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, and let's keep growing and hopefully inspire others to reach out and to join us.
Yeah. So that's a wrap for episode 5 of Into the Fire podcast. For anyone listening, thank you for taking the time today. And if any of this conversation was relevant to you, or if you think you could, benefit a buddy who could hear anything from this type of conversation, please feel free to share it. Don't forget to follow us on all of social media. We're on every platform at Forge and Freedom. And with that said, keep forging forward. Keep remembering to reset. Keep remembering to think twice before you run through that brick wall. Think of there's alternative solutions, and
listen to that little voice inside you.
And listen to that little voice inside you. And thanks again for joining us today. Catch you on the next episode.